Good afternoon and welcome to part 2 of the Preservation Week web series, Digital Preservation for Individuals and Small Groups. I'm Allison Armstrong, a member of the ALCTS Continuing Education Committee, and will be your host for this afternoon's webinar. Our presenter today is Mike Ashenfelder, Digital Preservation Project Coordinator at the Library of Congress. Mike has worked at the Library of Congress since 2003 in the National Digital Information Infrastructure and Preservation Program. He writes about personal digital archiving, leaders in digital preservation, and issues and new developments in digital preservation. He also produces public information videos and podcasts. A few things to keep in mind for today's presentation. Today's webinar does not have interactive chat capabilities. If you wish to comment on today's presentation using Twitter, you may use the hashtag on the screen. However, we will not be monitoring the Twitter feed. If you have questions for Mike, please type them into the question box on your screen, and he will answer them as time permits at the end of this presentation. Any questions which remain unanswered while on the air will be answered offline, and the answers will be sent to all attendees. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email with links to the recording, the presentation slides, and an evaluation within 2 days. Please take time to fill out the evaluation form, since it will be used by the committee to plan future events. There may be a slight delay as I turn the presentation over to Mike.
All right, can you see me? Thank you, everybody. Allison, can you text me? Thank you very much. And thank you all for having me for this webinar. A quick word about the division that I'm with at the Library of Congress. It's the National Digital Information Infrastructure and Preservation Program. And just briefly, what this is all about is that over the past decade, we have worked with other institutions nationwide and worldwide to try to tackle digital preservation and preserving digital collections and all. But we have only become aware within the past, let's say, 6 years that we have not been paying as much attention as we should to individuals, to families, to groups, to communities, and shared information with them about how to preserve their stuff. And let's face it, everybody's a stakeholder at this point, has an interest because of, if nothing else, the cell phone, the mobile, and the photographs that reside on it. So this is an attempt to share information, to scale down the exact same information that institutions use, but to make it accessible and understandable by everyone. And I'm happy to say that over the past few years, public libraries have gotten very involved. That involvement kind of started out slowly. There was, and that's not to fault public libraries, but the focus seemed to be on digital literacy, opening up public libraries to help members of the general public learn how to use, people who did not have or do not have PCs, learn how to use computers so it can advance their skills and help them get better jobs. But as you can see from some of these screenshots, many libraries, it's almost a daily occurrence across the nation, will have either a digital scan day or encourage people to bring in, a lot of it is around scanning or digitization. Encourage people to bring their stuff in and they'll help them get it digitized. And some libraries have the resources to open up whole sections where they, like the Cleveland Digital Public Library, where they have equipment that they'll make available to the community. And so it's no longer not a secret thing. It's not, but it seems like awareness is spreading fast. And that is thanks to the public libraries. It's not an official policy, but as a colleague put it, it's the awareness of personal digital archiving has gone from huh to oh yeah. So once it becomes obvious, people step up to help. People like you. And part of supportive evidence for this is that in the recent ALA report, the State of America's Libraries 2015, buried in the center of the report, around page 15 or page 18, they're talking about accreditation standards and how the needs of the public, of the community, expand the areas of concentration to include cultural heritage, community informatics, whatever that is, and digital archives. So they may be talking about the digital archives at the public library, but there's another step towards helping people in the community. There's an acknowledgement there of digital archives on a small scale. So we'll talk about individual archives in a moment. So the basic problem is that unlike, well, everything digital needs a container, a special storage container, whether it's a thumb drive or a CD-ROM or a hard drive. And there's, just as an aside, there's no best one. If anyone has a question about a recommendation for a best one, there really is no best one. I personally prefer a hard drive just because of the large capacity, but nothing's guaranteed to last, you know, very long. And very long is hard to quantify, like a decade or 7 years or 5 years, but there's no best thing. But you can tell by the spooky font there that I hunted down today that the main problem at the heart of all this is obsolescence. It's having your stuff, having photos or digital files of any kind, documents, recordings, being stuck on something that's obsolete, being stuck on a zip drive or an old floppy drive, just because it's not on our radar. It's not something that you pay attention to. You might put it in a drawer with your old photos and forget about it, and then in years later, you know, you're onto a computer. Your home computer is just a couple generations removed from that. So part of the solution, and I'll get to that in a moment, is to gather your stuff together and move it forward. But in addition to the obsolescence, we share files in so many ways these days that they can be scattered. So part of the solution is to gather it together. And part of this risk of loss also includes not only stuff that you send out into the cyberverse, if that's a word still, via email or on Facebook or wherever, but if you put stuff on a cloud, I'll talk about that in a moment, how that is, backup storage online is a good thing, but that's no guarantee that that company will be around when you want it to be around. So that's there's a risk of loss there. So the solution in general is very simple. It boils down to organizing and backing up. Now, if it was just that, we could all go home right now. But within those two points, those two concepts, there are a ton of steps. You know, that gets down into metadata and data migration and all that jazz. So start with organizing. So the first step is just to pull everything together, to find everything that you want to save. You know, get it off of CDs, off of floppies. If you emailed something but never backed it up, back it up. If stuff's on your phone, get it off your phone. And this is a basic appraisal step, such as archivists do, and that's it. That if you have, you know, 100 photos of the spring daffodils or the fall leaves, and you're taking this step to back up your digital files, well, it might be a good time, if you have the time, to go through them and toss what you really don't want to save, because as we all know, it's easy to save digital stuff, and it's easy to. We're going to go on vacation next month with my family, and I'll probably, in all likelihood, over the course of a week, take 500, 800 photos, but weed them down to the best 50. So it's a good time to sort through your stuff. The same with video, video on cameras, video on digital video, or old VHS video. A lot of times you might take a video and it's not quite clear, but it's something really precious. You know, it's a baby's first steps or something like that. But it's really not very good. So this appraisal step is a good time to weed it out and decide what you really do want to save. As far as organization, if you are indeed working with your library and trying to advise the general public how to organize things. There's no one way, but you want to be consistent with your system. So you might you gathered all your stuff off of floppies and off the net and put it onto a main folder on your computer to start with, and you might divide everything up by file type. You know, here's all the audio stuff, here's all the photos, or you could do it by year, or you could do it by year and file type. You know, a folder within a folder. Descriptive file names and folder names will help for a lot of reasons. You know, one is that you can eyeball it, just scroll through, or in the event that, you know, you pass away and somebody's sorting through your stuff, they can find it quickly just by reading it. Also, anything, just about anything that's text-based like this, you can just do a search on your computer, and your computer will have indexed it. It will find it. And then once you start organizing it, and you're ready to back it up, you want to put it on at least 2 different storage devices. This is just because you can't really rely on computers, you know, so or hardware. Things can go wrong. You can something as simple as knocking the hard drive off of the table and having it, you know, having it bust on the floor or something. So at least 2 different storage devices. And this step here is not very obvious, but at an institutional level it is. When you copy something over, let's say you're on your computer and you're backing stuff up. You know, if you're backing up, let's go back to the photos, and you have 100 photos, and there really are these very special ones that you have in mind. Just, you don't have to look at all 100, but, you know, look at the ones that you really care about and look at the size, or double click on them to open them up on the backup drive, and make sure that they copied over. At the institutional level, that's roughly equal to checksums and fixity, you know, things that are done automatically to check the health of a file and make sure nothing's happened to it. So if you can, a good practice is to save copies in different locations. So institutions do that. Every major institution will have a backup copy geographically just somewhere else in case something happens here. There's a good case for the cloud if you want to do an online backup, but I would always use cloud service as a secondary backup for a lot of reasons. Again, because a company could go out of business and take your stuff with it. You may not always be online for whatever reason. You might be cut offline, and that would stink, you know, to try to get at your stuff, and you can't due to some network interference. Professional photographers who live by their digital photographs, whose whole income is dependent on this, they have a 3-2-1 rule, which is to make 3 copies of every photo they take, save at least 2 on different storage devices, as we said before, and then 1 in a different location. So it's the same steps, but it's just a little mnemonic, you know, 3, 2, 1. The obsolescence is, again, that's at the heart of all this. So about every 5 to 7 years, you want to move your stuff, your collection, onto a new storage device. Flash drives have been around for longer than 5 years, thumb drives. So if you use the same thumb drive all the time, you might want to just get a new one, just buy a new one, and they get larger and larger for cheaper and cheaper all the time. But and where that number comes from is we have regular meetings at the library here with representatives from storage companies, Seagate and folks like that, and one of the consensus is that technology just seems to change about every 5 to 7 years. It's not a hard and fast rule. You could do it every time you buy a new computer. But here's something to reinforce the obsolescence. And I'll get back to this slide in a moment. But if you are thinking about doing a public presentation, one of the things that hammers home this point is if you could scrounge up some old floppies, some old zip drives. People will hold on to them, and older folks will wax poetic and get all, you know, misty about, oh, I used to work with this, and I used to work with punch cards. But the point is made that at one time it was new, and now it's not. It's obsolete, and even the cell phones in our pockets will be obsolete in time, and our thumb drives will be obsolete. And a last step about your own personal stuff is that it is valuable. A lot of it is very valuable and something that you would want your loved ones to know about. So you may want to, if you have the time, organize it and have a master document that lets a loved one know where your important documents are, what they are. If you still have stuff online, supply the passwords, username and passwords if necessary. But digital estate planning is an emerging practice, a very real and emerging practice. And I think that yeah, you could see that in stuff like Facebook. I think they're changing their policies. Google is changing their policies about who can and who can't access stuff when a person passes away, and their digital memorials and whatnot. Of the file types that people contact us most about, digital photos rank at the top consistently. And again, I guess that it's because of the cell phones and scanning. So we'll get to scanning, although that's not strictly about preservation. So this is just a quick overview of what a digital photo is and what you need to think about the technological parts. So when you take a digital photo, immediately a few things happen. The camera saves the photo as a file, as a digital file. It names the file, usually with some alphanumeric thing, 581b.jpg, and then it inserts technical information inside that file. It records the day and time. If you let it and you have the setting, it'll record the geospatial coordinates, so you know where it was taken, the shutter speed, the light speed, and finally, most consumer cameras will save it as a JPEG format. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on file formats because I don't want you to, if you don't deal in them, you shouldn't have to be burdened with thinking about file formats. But JPEG's a standard for consumer things. So the first thing you want to do, or one wants to do, is to get it off the phone as soon as possible. I have 2 teenage daughters, and I have to constantly remind them, and I think it is a parental responsibility to get their photos off their cameras and backed up onto the computer, because they won't think of it. That's just one more damn thing for a teenager to do. So the camera names the file with this alphanumeric thing. Well, again, if you have something very precious to you, you might want to rename it. Just single click and type in a new name so that you could find it easily again. Now, that's an efficient step, but also most photo gathering, photo processing software will let you see a thumbnail. So that may not be that important, but this will help you search for things. It's not a bad practice to rename a file, and not all files. So here's just some of the embedded technical information that automatically happens. Well, if you have a program like Picasa, P-I-C-A-S-S-A by Google, or Photoshop, you can open up the photo and you can do file information up in the menu, and you can add a description that will get embedded into the photo. It'll carry along with the photo. So if you send that to me, I can look up that description. If somebody inherits your photos, they can open it up and see the description. Photoshop costs Picasa is free. Now, something to be aware of is not all photo programs do this embedding. They appear to. So like iPhoto, for example, on the Macintosh, you can add descriptions and photo names and stuff, but it puts it into a database, and the database points at the file. So that photo on the left is separate from the information on the right about what's going on in the photo. We're still early enough in this digital preservation stage, this digital age, that things are still kind of dicey and need to be made more permanent and more standard set. So with a digital photo, for example, if you go through all the problem or all the work of putting in descriptions and you upload it to maybe Flickr or Facebook, I'm not sure the status of those two now, Flickr and Facebook, but some do strip out. Part of their accepting your photo will be to process it a little bit, and they will strip out that information. So whenever it's a good practice anytime you take a photo to tuck away the master photo and mess around with a copy of it. Back up your original photo. So this JPEG format, that's fine, so you don't have to worry about the formats. Just leave it as it is and back it up. Now, something you need to be aware of, especially anybody in a position to help the general public, is about compression. So just to get into the basics of digital photos, the way it displays is there are these little shaded dots or squares called pixels. And the language of pixels is usually DPI, dots per inch, or in laboratories they call it PPI, pixels per inch. And that's where you get that cameras that are 200 DPI, 10,000 DPI. So the more dots per inch, the more dense and sharp the photo will be. And the higher quality of the photo, the more gradients you have. The fewer the dots, the fewer, the less information you have, the less photographic information, the less visual information, and the lower the quality of the photo. So when you upload photos to some websites, they might get compressed too, and I'm sure that you've all seen, maybe you tried to email a photo and you get a dialog box that says, oh, would you listen to this as a small size, a medium size, or a large size, which means that they're going to compress it if you select small. And compression actually throws out a whole lot of information. In order to make a file smaller, it throws out all of this precious pixel data, and you can't get it back again. So it's easier to send, but again, I would never mess with the original. Just mess with a copy if you intend to crop it or do an eye correction or share it in any way. Because something could happen to it, but you always know that you have the original backed up safely somewhere. Now, scanning. We get asked a lot of questions about scanning, and mainly because in commercial scanning manuals are not as clear as they could be, not as clearly written as they could be. And this idea of DPI comes up a lot, and there's misinformation passed around. So again, it's not preservation per se, but just about everybody wants to scan old family photos or scan something and save it as a digital file. So for a 5x7, 4x6, or an 8x10 photo, if you're scanning it, 300 DPI is a good round number. If you scan it higher, 600 DPI, 900 DPI, more dots per inch, you're not necessarily adding more information. You're not making it sharper or better. A professional photographer would, and we've arrived at these numbers with through the help of professional photographer colleagues. So, you know, there are ways to fiddle with that number and to scan at higher resolutions, but it involves a lot more technical expertise. So, in general, you won't lose anything at 300 DPI, and you won't really gain much. A smaller image, you want to get more dots per inch, right? This one back here, that's my dog Maggie. Of Maggie is that's 5x7. This slide probably measures 1.5 inches, so I want to capture as much of that information as I can. So that's where you would scan it all the way up to 1800. You need more to capture detail, and also if you're scanning like a class photo, you know, especially one of the old class photos, but no, they still do it. A class photo where you have 20 people all posed together, and you really want that one face. That you could do like 1800 DPI for that one face, and then crop it, or save the whole thing. But that's where you really want to blow up that information. Again, you won't gain much, but it'll display nicely. So the scanner software saves your photo as a digital file, and often when you scan, there are a bunch of choices. DPI is one, file format is another, and the scanner may ask you if you want to save it as a TIFF or JPEG. And the main difference between the TIFF and the JPEG has to do with this compression. TIFF is uncompressed. And if you do save as a TIFF, sometimes it might even give you like an extra step choice, you know, and I forget off the top of my head what that choice is, but it'll basically say, do you want to compress it just a little bit or totally uncompressed? So if you have that choice and you have to make some decisions as you scan stuff, if it's a really, really priceless photo, I would scan it as a TIFF, totally uncompressed, unmodified, just the best that the scanner can put out. If it's your first grade report card, save it as a JPEG. That's your choice, but the choice is whether you want to gamble and lose a little information or not lose any information. Wow, I buzzed right through this. So outreach. Let's get back to public libraries and personal digital archiving. Public libraries are starting to help more and more. Back to this whole thing of these workshops. I've noticed that in some of the workshops I've given that they're difficult to advertise. What you call the workshop. So picture yourself at the door to the public library, and on the door it says, there are all these posters. There's an art class, and there's a learn how to play guitar and learn how to speak Spanish. And if you put a sign up for personal digital archiving, it might not attract a soul. They might not know what that means. Or they might. I've put up saving your digital stuff, or saving your digital photographs and other stuff. More often than not, the audience has been older, retirees who find that they have the time and the desire to scan all of these precious things, and because they know they can pass them along to folks who care, to other generations. And if you could, please consider hosting a digital archiving event and reach out to your community. I don't think a lot of people even know that it's a thing. I know, just talking with my family, my mom and my aunts, they don't quite know that it's a thing, and you have to kind of mention it casually at a lunch. Oh, by the way, are you saving the photos off your phone? At the Library of Congress, we've developed a number of how-to videos on scanning, on the general concept of why digital preservation is important. We've tried to address specifics about saving digital video, for example, how you might transfer it off of your device, or how you convert it from analog, from the old tape to digital. So please, come visit our website at digitalpreservation.gov/personal archiving, and help yourself to our resources. I'm going to be updating them soon, so if you don't, and I'll give you my email address at the end, but if you don't see something, information that you're looking for, please shoot me an email, and I'll be sure to address it in the as we redo this information. Now, if you're going to give a presentation, a couple things you might want to avoid is terminology that might alienate people or confuse people. So stuff that we would share with each other, information like photo metadata or records or stuff like that. You can get away with just saying descriptions for photo metadata, or photos for photos instead of records. And it's not condescending, or I don't see that as condescending. It's just not burdening somebody with technical information that they don't need. The same thing is over talking it like I'm doing now. You want to get right to the point. Size up your audience and get right to the point, because again, it's essentially organizing your stuff and backing it up. And especially if you offer somebody the opportunity to get more information, point them at a website, give them a handout, or answer questions as needed. They can pick your brain and see what you know. And these artifacts do help convey obsolescence. They're if you just litter the table at your presentation with these artifacts, it says a lot more than it's just a tactile thing. It just screams volumes. It's difficult to think about obsolescence when you're using the new iPhone 6 and making reservations by way of Siri. None of that seems obsolete, but as you know, it all does become obsolete. And the problem again is having your stuff getting stuck on this obsolete media. I can't emphasize how I don't have a solid grip on numbers, on who cares about this stuff, but this is very telling. What you're looking at is we get traffic reports from some people here at the Library of Congress who monitor our websites. What do we have? Like 30 websites for different divisions, you know, copyright and people like that. And we have about 14 different blogs. Ours is The Signal. It's called The Signal, and then there's 13 others, the Legal Blog and the American Folklife Center. And everybody puts out about 2 or 3 posts a week. So this is a traffic report for the month of March, the top 10 most visited blog posts. And I highlighted ours in red for The Signal. The top 3 there have to do with personal digital archiving. One is how much DPI or PPI is too much. There's that question again. You know, this information is so scattered that they're coming here for information by means of Google. We could say that they usually Google it and end up here. Adding descriptions to digital photos and archiving cell phone text messages. So people are looking for that information so much so that they're, you know, they're kind of, I wouldn't say stampeding. That's might be an exaggeration, but I think the numbers can tell you that it's very important to the general public. And so the last thing I'll have to say is that I don't know who you all are. I'm impressed that you know, I can see by the numbers here there's about 260 attendees. I assume that you're some kind of information professionals, whether you're librarians or students or genealogists or somebody from your local oral history group or community history, or you have an interest in this information. And if you're helping somebody, they're going to look to you for the technology part, and it's now part of what you do, whether you like it or not. You know, if you have a traditional training, you've just had to pick up this information along the way out of necessity. So, you know, I would say to not be afraid of any of this. If you don't quite understand about servers and metadata and all that, you know, don't lose any sleep over it. Just work with somebody who does. You're still an information professional, and as I think the numbers show, people really want this information, and it's only going to grow as awareness spreads. It's only going to grow. So thank you so much. Please check out our resources. There's the first one is the thing with all the brochures. The second one is the blogs. Oh yeah, the blogs. I forgot to mention that. We put out a couple blogs a week, and I probably get out 1 or 2 a month about digital preservation or personal digital archiving, and then make some noise about it on Facebook and tweet about it as well. So I would love to get your feedback. Email me if you want, and I'm going to turn it over to, my colleagues are going to take the hosting duties back, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
So it looks like we've got a couple of questions to start with. If other people have questions, please go ahead and send them in. The first question is, are college and university libraries doing any outreach like the public libraries are? That's
an excellent question. I'll tell you why. I over the weekend, I was at the Personal Digital Archiving 2015 conference in New York City, and there were women from 5 colleges, librarians and information technologists from 5 different colleges, and I remember Bryn Mawr and Vassar and 3 others, and they were talking about their experiences. And last year at the same conference, there were a couple of librarians from colleges in the Midwest. They're trying, and it's not easy, not because the information is not because the information is difficult to convey, but because it's the advertisement of it. It's the getting student attention that this isn't even an issue. The women who spoke last year talked about, you know, putting on this personal digital archiving day, and somebody was even out on the in front of the building with a sandwich board and acting all goofy, and just nobody came. And their conclusion was after the event that what they would like to do, and I need to follow up with them, is to work with professors of incoming classes and maybe, you know, be a guest lecturer one day and make incoming freshmen aware of the risk to their files and the importance of saving their files of preservation. And the same with the people who spoke this time. They were talking about advertising the event and getting the campuses on board with it. But yeah, there's a growing awareness on college campuses about it. And also, and this is a bit of an overlap, professors and instructors need a system, some kind of content management system on which to save their stuff. And the line gets fuzzy between what their personal stuff is and what they published professionally and what they published on behalf of the university. So there's a woman named Alyssa Stern-Cahoy, C-A-H-O-Y, who has done a bit of work at, I think, Penn State on scholarly content management systems. So it is an emerging issue, and it is something that is being dealt with in a lot of colleges across the country.
Thank you. Our next one is there a way we can host a personal digital archiving event at our institution?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The resources, again, check our website for resources. It's all public domain because we're the federal government. You can download any of it and reuse it. There are the videos. You could show the videos, or you know, watch the videos and just you know, repeat the information that's on the videos. And I've heard people doing personal digital archiving day, and just these one-off, one-time events. And I'd be inclined, if I were working in a university, maybe do it like, you know, a couple times a year, just an event, like a 90-minute event, maybe a 2-hour event. Depending on how ambitious you feel, you could set up digitization stations in case people are too embarrassed to ask but really want to work with scanning stuff or processing photos. So that gets into a little bit of time, but yeah, there are a lot of possibilities for it.
We had someone note that they are the entire IT department. And the next question, where can you go if you have data that's trapped in an obsolete format, like a half-inch floppy 16mm film?
I just search online for it. There are services. It depends on where you are, but there are online services where you can mail your stuff away, and they'll digitize it for you and send it back. And of course, you have to figure out the cost, whether it's worth it to you. But yeah, it's not an obscure problem, and there are cottage industries springing up around getting data off of old media or digitizing old media.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What about scanning DPI for historic images? Is there anything more specific that you can say if you want to zoom in on something, scan something that's big?
No, it's the same thing. So if you have a large old photo, an 8x10, you know, scan it at 300 DPI. And scan a couple if you want. If you've got a photo of Uncle Bill from the First World War, and he's, you know, with his buddies, you know, in uniform, you scan the whole thing, and then you know, scan it at a higher resolution and just crop out the face of Uncle Bill. But the same two numbers still apply. It's 300 DPI for the average size photos, and then what did I say, 1800 for the small ones, or for zooming in on faces.
At what point is it practical to use digital libraries or similar solutions for organizing rather than just folders?
I don't know. Can you talk about that a little bit more? I know you're just reading the question, Allison, but what do you think that means?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe if the person who posted it can maybe add a little bit more information.
Please.
Let's see. Do you know of any headlines that have been successful in getting people excited about attending an event?
That's a good question, and no, I don't, because I would use them if I could. Again, at the public libraries, the last couple of times I gave presentations, I focused on the photographs, scanning your digital, saving your digital photos or scanning. I'm confusing myself now. Preserving your digital photos and other digital stuff, something like that. And it's still not, see, it doesn't roll off the tongue, so I think it's just a challenge to come up with something catchy, something grabby.
And what's the best file type for scanning documents, PDF or TIFF?
That's a good question, and it depends on, in fact, I was just talking with a guy yesterday who was a writer who was scanning stuff as a PDF, but he was talking about the color quality of the photos. Photographers argue against scanning a photo as a PDF, and I don't, off the top of my head, know exactly why, but I know there's a good reason for it. So if the most important aspect of the thing that you're scanning is the photo part, I would scan it as a TIFF. If you want the document to be searchable, PDF is constantly evolving in a good direction, so I would scan the document as a PDF, because you could search PDFs. There are archival versions of PDF called PDF-A. So that's a long-winded answer, but the short version is I would stick with TIFF for photos and PDF for documents.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For scanning slides, is that done on a flatbed, or do you use an adapter or other equipment?
There are, you know what, I don't have a lot of experience actually with the work of it, but I've seen the setups, and there are trays, there are slide trays that could do, if you wanted to just like any kind of electronics store. Is Best Buy still around, or Circuit City? Which one's still around?
Best Buy.
Yeah, there you go. And just ask them. They should know. There are adapters that you can attach to some scanners, or there are scanners that you could buy that specifically have these slide adapters, and you could load them up and they'll pump them in. Or you can, they're just sheets, just plain old sheets of with little holders for the slides, so you could scan, 8 at a time. And most scanners will have software that goes with it, and you could tell that software to break up individual photos. So if it scans, let's say 12 slides, it'll create 12 separate files. It'll scan it once and then separate it into 12 separate files.
And can you suggest a cataloging program or software that could be used to update information, upload information, and browse through it?
Oy vey. A cataloging program to upload information and browse through it. No. No. No.
Okay.
It depends on how is your information in a spreadsheet or a database or whatever. So no, not off the top of my head. We'd have to talk about that more.
And if you're looking at purchasing technology, is there benefits to Macs versus PCs?
First of all, I couldn't say. If I did know, I couldn't say, because as a representative of the Library of Congress, I can't endorse one commercial product over another. I would go online with that question and see what people say online. Macs, traditionally, it's been ease of use, but you know, interface design, but that may not be the case these days. You know, both are fast, and you know, both will get you to where you want to go, which is making this digital thing, and you're just going to save the digital thing somewhere that has nothing to do with a Mac or a PC. They're just tools.
Let's see. Can you talk about software in terms of Windows and in terms of having things tagged, how it migrates to different systems?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about with uploading stuff to Flickr and Facebook. Oh, I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but there's an organization, excuse me, called photometadata, one word, .org, photometadata.org. And they have gone into exhaustive detail about comparisons and what strips out metadata and what doesn't. So I'm guessing that if I had a photo on my Mac that I gave to you and you put it on your PC, I'm guessing that it wouldn't do anything. I'm pretty sure that there's nothing disruptive about that moving a file from me to you. A lot of the damage seems to happen when you upload. Well, a good example of that is with YouTube and uploading videos, how you might see something on YouTube that's just really grainy and really awful looking, and you know for a fact it was, you know, you'd seen better versions of it. Well, YouTube processes videos into their own format. It does stuff. It interferes and it does stuff. So the same thing with any place that you upload or possibly send a photo as an attachment. The online thing might do stuff to it. But I don't think there's as much of a risk as just sharing between Windows and Mac.
If we hold a digitizing workshop and we want to get copies, say of old photographs or of the community or community families, what types of paperwork would we need to have to retain a copy of the photographs for our institutional archives?
That's a good question as well. There are release forms. Maybe if you search online for oral history release forms, there's probably standard language. Not probably, there is standard language. I know the Library of Congress at the Office of Folklife Programs, they have their version of a release form. There are a bajillion oral history societies that have similar things, and it basically says, you know, I promise to not sell this information without your consent, something like that. It's very simple wording, but it does what it sounds like you would want it to do, which is assure somebody that you're not going to do anything evil with the things that the personal things that you scan of theirs.
Thank you. So scanning old newspapers, what will be the best format to scan them for posting online in a repository and for preservation?
Wow. That too is a good question, and I don't know. We do have national. If you wanted to drop me an email, I can personally ask the newspaper. There's a newspaper group here of online old historic newspapers, and I could see what their standards are. But as far as the DPI, as far as the scanning, as far as the PDF settings, I don't want to pretend to know because I haven't had that much experience with it. And again, you could probably search online. In fact, not just the Library of Congress, but great many cities and counties across the country are digitizing their old local newspapers, and so there has to be some general consensus about scan settings and file types.
Great, thank you. I'm going to toss it over to Jessica Bitely for a second. She has information about paperwork that she's going to contribute.
Okay.
Hi guys, it's Jessica Bitely. I'm your representative for the Preservation Week Committee on this session. But regarding the question about paperwork and retention of copies of the photographs in the institutional archives, I think there are just some things that you want to think about when you're doing this. Most particularly is that if you're taking them into your institutional archives, are you really definitely prepared to steward these over the long term, because you are making a commitment to doing that, and they aren't actually, you don't hold the original object anymore. So so there's some things to weigh there. But if you're looking at information on paperwork, you might want to get in touch with the people who run the Mass Memories Roadshow. And basically what they do is go around the state of Massachusetts and help people digitize collections and talk about preservation, and they should have some paperwork resources. I forget what their website is, but it's Mass Memories Roadshow. They're hosted by the University of Massachusetts at Boston. But looking at deeds of gift forms as well, which you can find on the ALA website and on the SAA website, might give you some help as well. So that's it. That's all I had to say. I'm muting myself.
Thank you. Let's see. What standards are available for individuals who want to scan old photos and send them to a historical society for contributing to their website? And
again, it's similar to the other historical photo questions. The same thing. It goes by the size. 5x7, 4x6 photos, do it at 300 dpi, and if you want to zoom in on a larger one, a face in a crowd, do it at 1800. So there are no standards. It's just kind of the general consensus by photographers on dots per inch. And historical sites, I don't know if they. It seems to me that they would most want information, don't you think? Who's in the photo, if you can identify it, just as much information as you can gin up. Who is it? Where was the photo shot? What time of year? That sort of thing, so they can tie it. Because one of the main goals of any historical society or community history society is to celebrate the place. So you want to tie those photos to the place as specifically as you can.
Thank you. We had someone mention the ALCTS recommendations and a website, and we'll make sure that that's in the stuff that we send you all. We had some people talk about Content DM and Omeka. Mm-hmm. Usually thought of as digital library and digital asset management. Can you catalog or add metadata as you load things? Oh, that wasn't actually a question. But you can add metadata. And I guess, and somebody else suggested some other things like that.
The Personal Digital Archiving conference that just happened, their website is just that, personaldigitalarchiving.com. And there's a woman who gave a presentation. The presentation isn't quite up online yet, but that was the focus of her entire presentation, was building a personal collection or a small collection using Omeka. So that information will be available, and her talk will be available, I hope, in a week or two.
Great, thank you. So let's see, this one's a fairly long, and it's not, I don't think it's a question, but just this has been a great session. I work in an academic library and had never considered reaching out to our students about their digital stuff. we have a digital media major here, there might be ways to connect with them and their students, and then word might get out. It would be great PR for the library and its services. Let's see.
Well, and let me ask you, Allison, what's your background, Allison?
Collection development.
Collection development. Okay. So it's library stuff. You're a trained librarian, is that correct?
Yes.
So, do you get a sense that libraries are, and the word that came to mind is floundering, but not floundering, but there's this transitional period where librarians and archivists are kind of finding their way in the digital age, finding, like, trying on roles and testing out services, because some of the old models are kind of, people are taking out e-books and stuff like that. Do you find that that's the case?
Yes, definitely. And I think there's a ton of information out there that in general, just public libraries and academic libraries
and I know
accessing.
And I know that schools are starting to introduce, or for the past few years have started to introduce digital related stuff, digital preservation, digital content management, but it's not sweeping the nation just yet. And at the Library of Congress, we offer these kind of paid internships called the National Digital Stewardship Residency, where people go through a kind of, some of the students will go through kind of a boot camp and then go out and help members of the community. We've got a couple students that are going to be going across the street and helping members of Congress organize their digital stuff. So I think that librarians and archivists and information technologists and information workers are kind of, they're inventing. That's the word I'm looking for. They're kind of inventing when it comes to reaching out to students on campus. Nobody's telling you to do it. It's just that the light bulb goes off and you say, well, by gosh, this needs to be done. How do I reach out to the students? So it's a transitional period, and there's not a whole lot of guidance, and certainly not a whole lot of direction being dictated. But the need's there.
Yeah. We've got another question here. Can digital archives be used for genealogy resources?
Oh, absolutely. And we're waiting to hear from the genealogists, because just think, like, if you integrated a bunch of databases, all the information you could pull up on, just take your own family, if it depends on how much information is associated with that, the photos that you have, the information that you have. So let's say, I think my great-grandmother came from County Donegal in Ireland, so I've seen her ship the bill, the thing that lists the people that go over on the ship, and I know where she landed, and I know where she lived in Media, Pennsylvania. Well, if I could somehow aggregate all that and not have to go hunt for all of the census information, and also look at the makeup of the community in Media, Pennsylvania, and what it was like in 1918 when she came over. Genealogists are just ripe for this kind of stuff. And I really wish they were more involved, because genealogists should be out there making sure that their members are saving digital photos, whether it's scanned or born digital on these digital cameras, saving them with as much information as they can gather. Not everybody does the option of saving their geospatial information on their phone, because there are privacy issues there. You don't want people figuring out, if you take a picture of your kids, you don't want some creep figuring out, where the kid lives. But so that's another issue to deal with. But there's a lot of information to be had and to be gathered along with all the stuff that's valuable to genealogists. And I'd like to see them more involved with this.
Great, thank you. I think we'll wrap up. So I want to thank Mike Ashenfelder for his presentation and want to thank you all for attending this webinar. I also want to thank Julia Hess for providing the technical support and recording it. And we hope you'll look for future ALCTS programs on the website on the screen. And we have our last webinar in this series tomorrow. And please fill out the evaluation form when you receive it to help us develop more programs that you're interested in. Thank you.